Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Walking Through the Scriptures with Joseph Bahoda. I'm your host, Joe Bahoda, and I got a very sobering video to you today. Just real quickly, last night I happened to see I don't want to say new, it's been on Hulu now for about a month, the Jim Jones, basically, cult massacre on Hulu. It's the documentary of what happened at Jonestown in Guyana, South America, where, for those of you who may not know the story, because it happened in 1978, I believe, where Jim Jones, the cult leader, and the 1,000 members of what they call People's Temple Church in California, they left California to basically start a new society, and about 1,000 people went with them to start this new, society in Guyana, and which they called Jonestown, I guess named after, Jim Jones. And it's 3 episodes, and each episode's about 45 minutes. So to watch all 3 episodes takes about, a little over 2 hours to get through it. And it's very, very sobering. It was a gut punch, because I learned some things about, which, that being said, please, I think you should watch it. Is sobering as it is, and depressing and sad, and just really, really just disgusting as it is, I think it's very educational and informative, but it's also a really good reminder of what false teachers and false prophets and people like that can do, which I'm going to get to at the end. So I watched it last night, and it was a gut punch. There was a lot of things regarding the story I did not know. First of all, they show actual footage of what happened in 1978. Because what happened is, just to give you a quick recap of the documentary, again, the 1,000 or so people went down to Jonestown, and somehow word got back to some of the families in the States, and basically in this state, California, that some of the people in Jonestown were being mistreated. So some of the family members got together with the congressman, or from the state of California, to say, hey, we need your help with this, because we're hearing that they're being mistreated, whatnot. We need to do a health and welfare check. So this congressman from California and his press secretary and NBC News, there was 5 or 6 people from NBC News, and also the Washington Post. So there was journalists and stuff that went with them. So they got on a plane and they went down to Jonestown. And they had a hard time getting in there because they weren't allowed in there. People in Jonestown didn't want them in there and all that. So they had a very, very hard time getting in there. But to make a long story short, they did. And when they finally got into Jonestown, so the senator, or the congressman, I don't know if he was a House of Representatives or Senate, but anyway, he was the congressman or whatever from California. So him, his press secretary, the 3 or 4 news reporters from NBC, so they had their NBC cameras, they're filming all this and everything. And then they had a guy from the Washington Post. And so this documentary is showing the interviews, because the people who did survive all of this, and they also showed the actual footage. So you get to see all this stuff. Make a long story short, the senator and his crew get in there, and they all seem all happy. Everybody's all excited, and they're just loving the fact that they're there. But as it turns out, that not all 1,000 people feel that way. There's some people that want to leave, and they've wanted to leave for a long time. But Jim Jones was holding them basically against their will. And some of these meetings that Jim Jones had with these people, see, Jim Jones was like a psycho, and, well, not like a psycho, he was a psycho. And he recorded these, for whatever reason, he recorded a lot of these meetings. And they allowed you to hear some of the tapes where he would have meetings with the people that wanted to leave. And he was very mean, cruel, verbally abusive to them, all that kind of stuff. So he would not allow them to leave. To one person, he even said it was blasphemy that they even wanted to leave Jonestown. Because again, he thought he was a god and all that kind of stuff. too. That's a whole other story about his doctrine. But yeah, so they were basically, some of these people were being held against their will. So the senator and his crew, they go into Jonestown and they put on a big dog and pony show acting like everything's great. But a couple of the people had enough courage to slip them some notes and say, hey, we're being held against our will and we really want to leave. Could you please take us back to America because we want to get out of here? Which they couldn't just do that on their own because one, Guyana's in the middle of the jungle, and the airport was like 140 miles away. So it ain't like they could just leave in the middle of the night and go back to the airport. No, they're stuck in the middle of the jungle. And two, Jim Jones took their passports. When they came to Jonestown, Jim Jones took their passports, so they couldn't fly back to America even if they wanted to. Again, this is control, narcissistic manipulation to the highest level. So anyway, so some of the people that wanted to leave, they slipped the notes to the reporter, and they're like, hey, and it got back to the senator and all that. They're like, hey, some of these people really don't want to be here. We got to get them back. So anyway, there was about 15 of them that wanted to leave. So they put the 15 people in a truck, and they were about ready to head out of the camp. And as they were heading out of the camp, somebody from the camp attacks the senator. They try to stab him with a knife. He gets away, but he's got... And they hurt the attacker, and the attacker's blood is on him. He's okay at this point. Obviously shook up, but I guess, or whatever, but he's okay. So the senator, his crew, and these 15 people, they go to like a little dirt airstrip, which is where their plane landed. And so they go to the dirt strip, which is like 3 miles away, which is where their planes are. And when they get there, as they're about ready to get onto the plane, at the same time, Jim Jones has some gunmen basically follow them in a tractor. And when they're about ready to board the planes, these gunmen open fire. And make a long story short, 5 people were killed. One, the senator got killed. 3 or 4 of the NBC crew, the cameraman and a couple other people died. And one of the ladies of the 15 people, she died too. So 5 people died at the airstrip. These gunmen from Jonestown opened fire, and they killed 5 of them, including the senator and a lot of his NBC crew. And they shoot a lot of other people too. Like they shoot the press secretary, whatever, for the senator. So they all get shot up and they're all messed up. But they flee to the jungle and stuff, waiting it out. And that's all that they knew. Oh, by the way, once the shooting stopped, the pilots apparently are still alive, and they took off with the plane. So once the shooting stopped, they take off with the plane. So now they're all shot up, and they're all bleeding and everything because they got shot, but they can't get off the airstrip because they just took off with the plane. Well, I don't know what happened. I don't know if the pilots got back to, the town they came from or whatever, but word gets back to the States that Senator so-and-so is dead, because no disrespect, but I forget the name of the senator, but Senator is dead and the NBC crew is dead, and there's some bad stuff going on in Jonestown, so we need to deal with this. So while that's going on, they alert the local military that's there, and the local military come in with their helicopters and such. And they fly into the airstrip and they secure that little dirt field, and they get all the shot people out of there. And then they fly them back to Georgetown, which is basically the capital of Guyana. And they put him in an Air Force plane and they fly him back to the States. But one of the guy from the Washington Post, he stayed because he's like, this isn't the end of the story. Like, there's still stuff going on in Jonestown, and we need to find out what's happening. So the United States military, once they get word that the senator and the NBC crew is dead, they send like the Air Force Special Forces in there. And they're like, and their mission was to apprehend Jim Jones. At this point in the story, they didn't know that all the people had died yet. They didn't know. They were just going in there to just apprehend Jim Jones. Because to them, these 5 people just got murdered, and they're going in there to basically get him. And some of the people obviously were armed and dangerous, so they're basically going in to apprehend Jim Jones and basically to squash the situation. Okay? Well, by the time they get in there, they fly over with their helicopter and they see all these colors on the ground. And they first they think it's like confetti or just, they don't know what it was. They just saw all these different colors on the ground and they thought it was like trash or confetti or something. And then when they landed, obviously that's when they realized that hundreds and hundreds of people had died. And as a veteran, that really hit me from a veteran's perspective, because I was thinking as an active duty soldier, because they interview the Air Force Special Forces guy who was assigned to that mission. They interview him. And he's like, yeah, we got a call to go to Guyana and basically apprehend Jim Jones. So that was their mindset. That's what they thought their mission was. They didn't know that people had died. They didn't know what they were going to see when they got there. They didn't know what happened. So basically, because Jim Jones had his gunmen shoot down the senator and the NBC crew, he's like, and you could hear the audio tape. He's like, look, we're not going to be able to get out of this. They're going to come for us now. So basically, he ordered everybody in the camp to drink the cyanide-infested Kool-Aid, and they died. So I was just thinking, as a former veteran, imagine being an active duty soldier, and imagine that being your assignment. And that's what you come, and when you get there, that's what you see. And he said that the Air Force guy, it really just killed him, not just to see all the dead bodies, but he saw a lot of dead children where the parents were holding their kids. And all told, 302 children died. And they showed like the school that they had, and they showed like the kids' pictures and hey, mommy, daddy, and all, the little hand, paintings and all that. 302 children died. Imagine being the veteran on the ground and you see that. I can't even imagine being assigned to that assignment, number one. Number two, all these years, I thought it was a mass suicide. It wasn't. They released the tapes. Again, Jim Jones, being the sicko that he is, he recorded all this. And on the tapes, and they play the tapes in the documentary, so I'm warning you now, it's a gut punch. It's a gut punch. It turns out not everybody wanted to commit suicide, guys. Some may have to go down with Jim Jones, maybe, but not all did. Because in the tapes, you can hear the mothers pleading with Jim Jones not to kill the babies, not to kill the children. And you hear mothers and women in the background crying and wailing, either because they don't want to do it or they don't want Jim Jones to kill their children. And you hear the mothers in the back wailing, and you hear the lady speaking to Jim Jones, pleading, don't do this. Jim Jones made him do it. And when you get there, and they show pictures of it, because again, they have video footage of this, and they release this. So as you're watching this, you're seeing the 1978 footage where they had some needles and stuff, and basically bow and arrows, and like guns and stuff. And apparently the people that didn't want to do it, they killed them. They either shot them or bow and arrowed them, or they put a needle with the cyanide solution in the needle, and they injected it in the back of their spinal cord, in the back of their neck. And they forcefully murdered those people. I didn't know that. All these years, I thought it was a mass suicide. I didn't know it was mass murder. Which, by the way, because of all this evidence, the United States reclassified this as from mass suicide to mass murder. It is no longer, and I don't know what year they reclassified this. But all these years, I thought it was considered a mass suicide. It is not. It is not classified that anymore. Or whenever they decided to reclassify, it's considered a mass murder. And based upon the evidence, rightfully so. rightfully so. All in all, like I said, 302 children died. But all in all, 913 people died. 913. And if you count the 5 people that were murdered on the little, airport dirt strip, 918 total died. 918. And even more sad, so when the Air Force got there, they got 913 caskets, and they shipped all 913 bodies back to the States. And they shipped them back in Oakland, and they just basically dug a big old hole and put all 913 caskets in the hole, and they had a mass burying for them. And they have their little gravestones over the big hole, but they did a mass burial for all 913 of them, 913 caskets. And it's in Oakland, California. I didn't know that either. After seeing all this, I was heartbroken. I was gut punched. To the core. It shook me to my core. Just unbelievably sick. Mass murder is what it was. And I felt also bad for the 913 bodies, just the way that they buried them in a big mass, basically grave in a big hole. I felt weird about that too. It also got me thinking too. I remember like when I was a teenager, when I was younger, I'm 48 now, but I remember being like 18, 19. I remember people making jokes about, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. I don't ever want to hear that ever again. Now that I know what actually happened there and I saw it firsthand and all of that. I already knew what happened, but I didn't know all of it. Now that I know it was a mass murder and all of that. That joke of don't drink the Kool-Aid is not only, it never was funny, but I don't ever want to hear that ever again. That is so unbelievably inappropriate. So unbelievably inappropriate. Now let's fast forward to today. If you listen to a lot of Jim Jones's teachings about we are gods, that's the same stuff that Kenneth Copeland's teaching. Kenneth Copeland said anywhere he sees Jesus, he just puts the word Kenneth in there. He says, I am too. So anywhere Jesus is, he just takes Jesus out of the Bible and he inserts Kenneth and he says, I am too. That's the same kind of crap that Jim Jones was teaching. That we are little gods doctrine. Jim Jones taught the same thing. Kenneth Copeland's spiritual son, Creflo Dollar, he teaches the little gods doctrine. This is refurbished and repackaged Jim Jones's type teachings, guys. On that particular topic anyway, they taught the same thing. That should scare you. That should scare you. Really, because when we look at Jim Jones, they're like, oh, I know that's a cult leader. That's a false teacher, wolves in sheep's clothing, false prophet. Yeah, he was just false. There's teachers today teaching the same garbage that he did. Same thing. That should be a huge wake-up call, which is another reason why you really, really, really need to watch this documentary. As gut-punching as it is, because it's a huge wake-up call. It really is, because a lot of these prosperity gospel word of faith guys, they teach the same garbage that Jim Jones did. We are gods, and since we're gods, we can name it and claim it, speak into existence. We have this kind of power, all that kind of stuff. I did a video a couple weeks ago about Bill Johnson in Bethel. His mentor was William Branham. William Branham taught the same garbage. These are cult leaders, guys. These are false teachers. And that false teaching is still being passed on to this day. And it's still being taught right now in 2024. And it got me thinking, how many people in these prosperity gospel word of faith circles, how many people actually know that? I'm doing a video tomorrow about, why the Word of Faith Prosperity Gospel movement was so attractive to me, at least when I was in it. But it got me thinking about the people in the pews. How many people in the pews actually know that their heroes like Kenneth Copeland and Creflo Dollar and all that, they're teaching a lot of the same crap that cult leader, mass murderer Jim Jones was teaching? Probably not a lot. One, because it was so long ago, like, 40, 50 years ago. But they're not being told to connect the dots. So they don't know that their hero, Kenneth Copeland, Creflo Dollar, whomever, are teaching a lot of the same stuff that Jim Jones did. They're probably not aware. Which is one of the reasons I make these videos, is to reach people that are in that movement still. Not to judge them and not to say how dumb and ignorant and stupid they are. No, out of love, and I'm showing grace to them, pleading with them to come out. Because they're under the same cultish, false gospel, false teacher doctrine. And I don't think a lot of them people know it. Which is very, very scary, number one. But two, that's why I make videos like this. To help people get out of these movements. Because there is a lot of spiritual arsenic in their teachings. And it's dangerous. So it's called Cult Massacre, One Day at Jonestown on Hulu. It's been on Hulu now for about a month. It'll take you about 2 hours and 15 minutes to get through it. The 3 episodes. But I'm here to tell you it's well worth your time. As gut-punching as it is. It's an eye-opener. Very somber eye-opener. But it just got me thinking about a lot of things. And I'm going to share this tomorrow when I talk about the people in these movements. We need to give them grace and not just act like they're so dumb and stupid. A lot of these people are victims. Yeah, they don't read their Bibles, and we can say all those things, and all those things are true. I'm not saying that's not. But they're victims as well, and they're souls, and these are people behind those pews, and there needs to be grace to help get them out and love. Amen. And I'm going to be talking about that tomorrow. Anyway, this has blessed you. I don't even know how I transitioned out of that. But if this has blessed you, hit the like button, share button, subscribe if you haven't. Yeah, this is a gut punch and eye opener. But it's one of those things you got to be reminded of. Because a lot of those doctrines are still being taught right now. So let's be vigilant and pray and help people that are in those movements. Amen. Again, like, subscribe, and share. Till then, know that God loves you, and I do too. God bless everybody.